Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I just want to thank everyone for showing up to this very momentous occasion as we have the 79th Assembly District Candidate Forum. It's going to be moderated by the League of Women Voters. My name is Rod Matthews. I am the chair of the Voteless People is a Hopeless People Committee. I'll say that again. The Voteless People is a Hopeless Committee of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the Zeta Sigma Lambda chapter, which is the San Diego alumni chapter. Today, we'd like to thank our two esteemed candidates for coming out, sharing their positions. That gives us an informed opinion on where you should place your vote. So we'd like to thank Ms. LaShae Sharp Collins and Mr. Colin Parent for showing up today. And we'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for their excellent job of moderating this event. So without further delay, we'll get to it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome. My name is Dana Freehoff. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and I'll be your moderator for today's candidate forum for California's 79th Assembly District. I want to start by thanking the host of today's forum, the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and specifically the Zeta Sigma Lambda chapter, the San Diego chapter. The League welcomes opportunities to work with these local organizations to provide voters with an opportunity to hear from the candidates. We would especially like to thank our candidates for attending today. Thank you very much. And most importantly, we would like to thank all of you for coming and becoming informed voters. I'll have to say the League is proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties, but always working on vital issues of concern to members and the public. Also important for you to know is that I do not live in the 79th Assembly District and therefore impartial regarding this current election. We are using the League of Women Voters format for this candidate forum. As part of our mission to educate voters, the League moderates candidate forums using a format that is fair and informative. The candidates have all agreed to this format in advance. So at this forum, you will have an opportunity to ask questions you care about and a chance for the candidates to explain their positions. It is a forum with the voters and not a debate between the candidates. So I'd like now to review the format for today's forum. Oh, and as a reminder, as a courtesy, if you could just turn off your cell phones, we'd appreciate it. Thanks. So first of all, each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statement, 2 minutes for their closing, and 1 minute to respond to each question from the audience. The order of candidates has randomly been selected. So we have a timekeeper, Janelle. There's Janelle. And she will be keeping track of the time by raising paddles at agreed upon intervals. So she's going to be our, police here as far as keeping the candidates on track. And then we have, and as I mentioned, the most important part of this forum is hearing from you and the questions you may have for the candidates. So there will be no verbal questions from the audience. And then we have Pages, Gail, and Beryl. They're over there. They'll pass out. If you've got a question and you don't have an index card, you can get one from them. And then we will be collecting the written questions and giving them to our question sorters. So we have Diane and Kathleen from the League and Rob from the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Zeta Sigma Lambda chapter. All right. We would recommend the following regarding your questions. Word your questions in a general way. Please remember to use civility and respect in wording your questions. Keep your questions succinct. Commentary prefacing a question will not be read. And then questions directed specifically to one candidate will be held until there are specific questions for both candidates. Now, the question sorters are going to organize the questions into categories of similar nature to avoid repetition and assure topics of greatest interest are being asked within the time available. And then if there are questions that are inappropriate for an assembly district, that are more maybe focused on local issues like the city of San Diego, those will be set aside. We encourage you to please hold all applause until the forum is finished to ensure that both candidates have equal time and to keep things moving. And then one final item is, since the candidate forum is designed to provide a nonpartisan setting for undecided voters to hear all positions, any demonstrations of support or opposition, such as clapping or booing, to the candidates or their positions will be out of order. All right, so let's begin. We'll start the forum and their opening statements, and we'll begin with candidate Parent.
All right. Is this too loud? No. Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for being here. My name is Colin Parent. I'm on the City Council in La Mesa, and I'm running for the 79th Assembly District. I want to thank Alpha Phi Alpha and the League of Women Voters for organizing this. This is the kind of thing that candidates can't do, and so it's great that community organizations are setting these things up and sharing what we're having to say with the broader community. So a little bit of background about me. So I grew up in the East County part of San Diego, went to Valhalla High School, and practiced law for a few years before joining Jerry Brown's campaign in 2010. He might have heard he won, and so I had an opportunity to work in his administration at the Department of Housing, and I worked there for a few years before coming back and running for City Council and being the first Democrat elected in La Mesa in decades. And some of the things, and so I've got a lot of experience in all sorts of different levels of government. And the things that I've been talking about to voters, what I'm hearing the most from them is that cost of living is just a huge problem. And of course it is. The rent is way too high. I'm a renter. I understand that very viscerally. The idea of buying a house is so off limits to so many people because it's just the average cost of a home is like $1 million in our region. It's bonkers. And we need to be doing more things about this. Given my background and experience at the State Department of Housing, I have a strong understanding of what the policy tools and levers are available for this. We need to be making more investments in affordable homes. We need to be investing in services and programs for homeless people, and we need to be taking this crisis as seriously as we should be. And those are the things that I'm very focused on. Looking forward for an opportunity to talk with you all about other issues, and again, thank you for the invitation and for organizing this event.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Dr. LaShae Sharp Collins. I'm a candidate for California State Assembly to represent the 79th. Thank you so much to Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated for hosting this forum along with the League of Women Voters. I am the candidate that is born and raised literally right here in Southeast San Diego. You can go up the street, go right behind Lincoln High School, and that's where my family still currently resides. Me being born and raised here is one thing that truly sets me apart. It's because I know what it's like to grow up right in Southeast San Diego and walk a mile in my constituents' shoes. I am raising 2 children here in this district. I do have a daughter who is now 20 and my son is 14. And I have to make sure that both of my kids understand and know what it's like to walk around these streets being a person of color and having to deal with the different things that has taken place, not only in this area, but just throughout San Diego County. I am a graduate of San Diego State University, but also from Lincoln High School as well. I do have my doctorate in education leadership, but I do bring to you 9.5 years of being the district director for our current Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber, when she was inside this particular seat as well. Therefore, I am qualified to do this work because I have already done the work. I'm having worked for her for those 9 years. My overall platform consists of course, education, as education is my #1 priority, but also dealing with social justice, the reproductive freedom, environmental justice, and housing and homelessness. These are things that we have to address throughout this district, and I do hope that you have a number of questions that we can move forward to address. But once again, I'm Dr. LaShae Sharp Collins, candidate, State Assembly, born and raised right here in Southeast San Diego, and truly know what it's like to be a constituent from this community, and I stand for my community.
All right, thank you to both candidates. So we'll start some of our questions now that we received from the audience. We've got a couple questions dealing with criminal justice. The first one is, how do you plan, from a position at the state level, to balance community safety with criminal justice reform? And we'll start with candidate Colin Sharp.
Sharp Collins.
Sorry about that.
Balance community safety with
criminal justice reform.
Okay, so it's similar to what we have done when I was a staffer in the Secretary of State's Weber's office. What we did was we did go out and talk to our different community organizations. Not only did we talk to our community organizations, but we partnered with our community organizations and advocated for funding throughout the state to make sure that money was coming in to these different programs that were going to help us address our public safety issues and what we currently have. We also advocated, and we did speak to the police department about various things, but we also did work with, of course, making sure that we have the racial profiling, the RIPA board that currently exists. We've also done other work, thank you, in regards to police foreign body cameras and other things, just to make sure that even though we have the interactions, that our community is being treated fairly, and that we're being respected, and that we're being heard, we're not being marginalized, but our community voice has been elevated across the entire platform. So I will continue to echo the work that not only Secretary of State Weber has done, but also what our current Assembly Member, Dr. Keelan Weber, is doing, and the Black Caucus.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So on the City Council in La Mesa, I have to balance this. These are things that I have to deal with directly in my job. So since I've been on the City Council, we implemented body-worn cameras for our police department. And we also, folks may know, we had some pretty serious civil disturbances in La Mesa in 2020, including with riots. And so one of the things that we did after that, and I say this as someone, I think law enforcement's important. We need to fund it. We need to make sure that we have a strong police department. But we had some problems, and so I'm very proud to have voted for a police oversight board for the city of La Mesa after that. And by the way, when I did that, the Police Officers Association withdrew their endorsement for me because I was running for re-election there, right? So I think that's the right balance. We need to have public safety is a top concern. We need to fund the activities that help prevent crime but we also need to ensure that we have accountability. And I think that's the right way to balance those considerations.
All right, thank you. A related topic, what is your position on Proposition 36? This is on the ballot in November. This is to increase penalties for theft and drug trafficking. Excuse me. Candidate Parent?
Yeah, so I'm going to be voting for Prop 36. I think we have some serious problems in society that we need to address. And I say this as someone who voted for Prop 47. Like, at the time, we had a big prison overcrowding problem and we needed to address it. Today, we have somewhat different problems. Fentanyl is running amok in our communities. Shoplifting is creating real challenges for businesses and for customers. I was really hoping that the legislature was going to step in and take action on this issue, but they failed. And so now I think we as voters have an obligation to step in and to do some corrections. I don't think that this is the last we're going to have these conversations. There's no end state in public policy, but I do think that we need to be addressing the problems that we find ourselves dealing with in the moment. Are we going to if we adopt this, if we vote for this, and by the way, it sounds like 70% of the voters are with me on this. It doesn't mean that that's the end of things. We'll probably change things and address things differently in the future, and I think that's the way we should be approaching our problems.
My stance is no on 36. And I say that because what 36 is going to do is take us backwards to what's happening back in the 1990s. It's going to take us back to increasing the mass incarceration from which we have worked so hard to move away from. It's also going to bring back a lot more racial profiling. We are already dealing with it now, but it's going to bring that back. But moving forward with 36 will take away funding for various programs that are needed for mental health support, the drug rehabilitation support that's there, and also it's going to have a huge impact not only on the Black communities, but really on all of our BIPOC communities. And so I will stand strong and firm and tall with Governor Newsom and along with the Black Caucus and a host of others that are against this, because we worked so hard to ensure that we do not go backwards, do what we can to move forward, and we have to think outside the box and make sure that we get to the root cause of why folks are doing what they're doing. And that has to deal with us correcting the social economic factors that currently exist.
All right, thank you, candidates. We're now going to shift to a different topic on housing. So what specific policies at the state level would you implement and support to address affordability and accessibility to housing in our area?
Okay. So let me just make sure everyone knows, I'm not an expert in housing, okay? And I'm not going to pretend to be. I've never been a elected official as well. But moving forward, having gone through the process of struggling to purchase my first home, as I did some years ago, it's important that we have some credit repair programs put in place. We have a number of people who have the finances to move forward, but the homes are not affordable to them. One of them has to do with their credit. So we need to have some type of credit repair programs that are in place that's really going to assist them. But also, I'm thinking about having an equity program also, which is to where the homes that are available and get the state to absorb some of the cost of the home, and so that way the home can be a little bit more affordable to families as well. So those are just two different ideas that I have been tossing around, but there's a lot more that I like to toss around as well, but I can't answer that in 1 minute.
Yeah, so the biggest problem that we have for housing affordability is we don't have enough homes, and the homes that we have are too expensive. So credit repair programs are not going to help people to be able to afford the average $1 million house that's available out here, right? That's not the proximate reason why people aren't able to buy a home. So what we need to be doing is we need to be adopting laws that allow for and to encourage the creation of more starter homes, homes that are more easily affordable for first-time buyers. And so one of the things that I'm really keen on is doing a law to tell cities that they're not allowed to say no to some of those kinds of homes, like townhomes. Townhomes used to be a common thing. It was an easy way for people to get their first home ownership opportunity, get on that housing ladder, build some equity, build some generational wealth. And we gotta tell cities they can't say no to that anymore. And so that's something that I'm really keen on doing. That's the sort of thing that we need. We need to be making it so that people are able to buy for that first time, because right now it's just not an option for so many people.
All right, I have another somewhat related question. There we dealt with housing, now we're going to talk about our rentals. Rentals are becoming also more unaffordable, and especially for those that are on fixed incomes. If elected, would you support rent subsidies to prevent people from becoming homeless?
Yeah, so we actually on the City Council in La Mesa created a rent subsidy program for homeless or for seniors who are at risk of homelessness. So I think this is a good thing where we're able to use some of the ARPA funds from the Biden administration to be able to do that. I think that's good, but that's not the kind of solution that's going to solve this problem in a broad way. There's just too many renters who and the costs are too high for so many people that there's not enough money in the state budget to make up for all of that. Right. So what we also need to do is we need to make sure that we are building enough homes so that the rent is not being driven up by the shortage of available homes. In fact, the city of San Diego has been a pretty good leader on this. We've actually seen a reduction in starting rents in San Diego just this last year. It was one of the few markets in the United States where that's occurring. That's a symptom of those policies allowing for more homes being successful, and we just need to be doing more of that. Most people who rent don't have the benefit of receiving subsidies. They also need, thank you.
Yes, I will support rent caps. And what I need people to understand is that we cannot build our way out of the issue that we have. We cannot subsidize our way out of everything. What needs to happen is that we have to do everything we can to keep up with the current cost of living within the entire state of California. So that means that we have to increase the income for everyone that is living here. And so I'm saying, yes, I will definitely support rent caps, but also kind of going back to that last question is for legislation within itself, I would want to make sure that the state starts to utilize the current state property that we have. There's so much land that we have for us to build upon, but also start talking to our schools and our churches that also have land and get them to build upon that land as well and work with private and also public entities to get things done so that way we can't have enough housing available.
All right, a question somewhat along those lines. Do you support tuition caps and housing subsidies for community college students?
100%. That's it, period. Yes, I support tuition caps and housing subsidies. That is important. A lot of our students are actually couch surfing. People tend to forget, and this is community college, but let me take you up to San Diego State and take you to UCSD and others. A number of our students, people fail to remember that tuition is tuition. A lot of tuition does not include housing. So some of our students are now returning back to campuses because they can no longer pay for their dorms. So we have to do something. The state needs to continue to identify ways of funding to cover the cost for students to stay on campus, but definitely coming up with some type of subsidies, which is what UCSD has done right now. They have a housing development for 1,300 students where they are paying $850 of their rent for those students to stay. Something similar to that is something that we need to start looking at for CSU systems and our community colleges. They are growing tremendously. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we need to really take more seriously the really high costs that we're charging students to get higher education in California. Community college is actually by far the more affordable option compared to the CSU and UC systems, and it really does matter that price point, and we gotta hold those public agencies into account. They can't just solve all their budget problems by charging their students more. I'm supportive of all kinds of subsidies for renters and including for students, but again, we're not going to be able to subsidize our way out of this. We have to allow for homes that are affordable, especially to students. On my city council in La Mesa, I was the only person on my council to support a proposal for student housing in our community. It got voted down because people didn't want more homes. People didn't, they want to continue to oppose those things. We have to stop that. In order to make things more affordable for people, we're going to have to allow for more homes, including in our own backyards. And that's the sort of thing that we need to do if we're going to create broad affordability.
All right, so again, somewhat related, if again, we're looking at the state level and you're looking at more housing, how do you address the issue of gentrification and its sister issue, homelessness? So I know we're talking about additional housing. How do you make that affordable and not gentrify a community?
Yeah, so I wrote and sponsored a couple of big bills in the last few years that were signed into law by Governor Newsom to allow for more homes when developers choose to include some deed-restricted, permanently affordable units. It's called the State Density Bonus Law. And this is a powerful tool that encourages the creation of affordable homes, permanently affordable homes, but it has a really important feature in it, and it can't be used to displace existing residential units where persons who are income qualified are living, right? So it basically says, yeah, we want more homes. We're gonna streamline the development of new homes with it, have affordable housing, but not in the situation where there's an existing home or existing residents who are low or moderate income. And I think that's the right balance to strike. So you can encourage more homes, but do it in a way that avoids any displacement for existing residents.
Once again, we cannot continue to build our way out of this issue. And so we need to increase, of course, the supply of the affordable housing and make sure that we have the supply being done through our overall state funds. But we need to expand the affordable housing program. So we have the HFA program that is there. Also encourage the workforce housing development and make sure that we're offering some tax incentives to builders and so forth. But as I mentioned before, to get the homes to be more affordable, we have to start thinking outside the box. Affordability, once again, has to do with the income. At the state level, we need to make sure that our communities and our people are employed with enough quality wages so that way they can have a quality of life. Through that work, the equity program that I mentioned is something that can work. We can also start to talk with others as well to make sure that we are providing supportive services alongside the housing. It's not just the fact of them needing a job, there's also some mental health support services that's there, career training that is there, and doing everything we can to help them deal with the housing stability. And these things are key.
All right, we're going to shift gears. What do you think is the role of the state government in managing, welcoming the immigrants that are coming into California? I mean, as we all know, immigration policy is a federal issue, but there can be a role by the state. So what do you think that role is?
Since we say we are the land of the free, right, home of the brave, and we are right here by the border and so forth, we need to continue to be open. And the state is being open. The state is doing everything they can to ensure that everyone is coming is being able to obtain the quality of life. making sure that you do have access to quality health care, making sure you do have access to quality education, and that you are also being protected through workers' rights. As we know that workers' rights are also human rights. So doing exactly what we've been doing right now to this very day is to make sure that even though we are talking about those that are currently from this country, as we open up our doors to allow people to experience what we have had the ability to do so, we have to give them a fair chance and equal access. And that's what I see the state doing, and I will support what the state is doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're a nation of immigrants. We need to embrace that, especially here in the Southern California and the border regions. The state does have a role to play in this. There's a state offices around immigration, refugees. Those are important things to continue to fund. Most of those activities are like of a federal nature and federally funded, but there's a lot of coordination that can and should happen between local agencies that the state can help facilitate, both to help people get access to public services, to help them get access to housing. Those are things that I think the state really is very appropriate to be involved in. Some cities have gotten in the game on this too, which I think is really great and hopeful. I'd like to see encouraging more local jurisdictions to do that so that they can help new folks in our community to be able to have a stake in our area and to be able to thrive and to grow their families here.
All right, thank you, candidates. This one's on healthcare. How will you work to ensure equitable access to healthcare services for all residents, particularly marginalized communities?
Yeah, so for most people in the United States and in California have their health insurance through their employers, right? But a lot of people have publicly funded healthcare, Medicare, Medi-Cal. And then a lot of the folks in our district in the 79th rely on nonprofit community clinics like San Ysidro Health Center or Family Health Centers, a number of these that are in our community. Those are primarily state funded, and we have to make sure that they're prioritized in our budgetary process. That's a key way for people to access healthcare who aren't able to get it through their employers. And so that's something that we ought to really keep in mind. It's not just hospitals, it's not just health insurance companies, it's also these community clinics. They're such a big part of being able to make this happen for people.
Healthcare itself, the state is doing a really good job in regards to making sure that we do have quality healthcare for all. But do we have a long way to go? We still do. And so when it comes down to it, I served on the board of Planned Parenthood of the Pacific Southwest for 6 years. And we made sure it was our duty to ensure that we had enough medical clinics throughout the area. And so I will continue to advocate across the state to make sure that we have access to quality health care, but also affordable health care. I know the conversation about the universal health care, we still have that, and the single payer, but I'm all about universal health care, making sure that everyone has equal access to that. As far as making sure that it's going to be affordable, the state is already doing some things in regards to doing that, such as, I have 15 seconds, such as making sure that we are holding our PBMs accountable in regards to letting people know why the cost of our medication is going to be what it is, but also looking to create their own medications as well. And by creating their own medications, that will create jobs for us, but also ensure that more people can afford the cost of their medication.
All right, thank you, candidates. We're going to move to the state budget now. California had a budget shortfall of $38 million this year. How would you address shortfalls in the future?
Well, you do have to do what you can to plan for these things, but you have to know that there's no one-size-fits-all model. And so we have to do what we have been doing in the past, is looking at the taxes itself. We need to go back and look at the COLA from what we currently have and how we are getting our current tax dollars, but also making sure that we are making sure that we have enough reserves and that we're allocating funds to allocating money to things that we currently need and not taking away and cutting things that is necessary and needed for us to actually thrive. I know right now a lot of people were concerned about a big budget cut pertaining to education and to healthcare. But if you look at one of the ballot measures that currently exists, that is to help us as well to ensure that should we encounter another shortfall as far as the budget goes, that we will have actual funding available to ensure that providers will be able to be accessible and available to folks, and that's looking at Prop 35. And so we're trying to figure out ways to ensure that next time we have a budget fall, we have things in place and have a pocket of money for key areas that are important to us.
Yeah, so in California, we have a very progressive tax structure, which relies substantially on when rich people sell stocks. And so, like when a big company does an IPO, the state of California will have a big windfall. And when no company does an IPO, like we have a budget crisis, it's kind of bonkers. I mean, it's good that I strongly support the idea of having rich people pay more than everybody else, but the system has this really serious challenge. And so I think what we need to do is take a lesson from my old boss, Jerry Brown, and make bigger investments in rainy day funds when we have those windfall years, so that those lighter years are less painful. And we should be exploring legislative reasons for that. We should be exploring that in our budget, like they've done, like Governor Brown did. And we really need to have conversations about constitutional reform to facilitate that. It's a real big problem for the provision of public services when you have these boom and bust. Thank you.
All right, so let's get specific here. What are the funding priorities during a budget shortfall?
Yeah, I think education has to be right up there. We have constitutional obligations in California to maintain education funding. Also, we really need to be prioritizing the services that are going into what the voters are saying are the biggest challenges, which is housing affordability and homelessness. We need to make sure that we're continuing to invest in the development of affordable housing, and we need to continue to be investing in the services that are necessary to help get people off the street who are suffering from mental illness or addiction or other challenges. And those are the things that I think we need to make the top priority. And it's going to be hard. The budget was really tough this last year. Every indication is it's going to be difficult this upcoming year. But those, I think, are things that we can and should hold harmless, so that we're able to quickly pivot and recover in a better budget situations.
The top priorities are health, education, and environment, mental health supports, which also falls under health, and the reproductive rights. And they've also made public safety another component of what the priorities have been.
All right, thank you. You both mentioned education as being a priority, so the state budget is down. So how do we fully fund public education so that all students are ready for college or trade school?
There's no one-size-fits-all model approach. So I can't sit here and give you something that's going to be concrete, because that too can change. So yes, we're looking at the our tax dollars in the way we are funding it. But what we have done uniquely in California is have given local control. So the money that is there, as it trickles down to the school district, we need to make sure that us at the state level are holding all of our county offices and our school districts accountable for how that money is being spent. One way to do that is to give more authority to the county Office of Education, so that way they can approve LCAPs and or deny LCAPs based on how the money is being spent, whether it's in the classroom, it's going to staff, and so forth. So there's a whole process to that. But besides having tax dollars come in, it boils down to how we are holding the districts accountable and making sure that things are also transparent.
Yeah, so we have, through Prop 98 in California, some constitutional protections for education. That's, I think, really important, and that's how we should be thinking about this. We shouldn't have education be subject to the whims of whoever gets elected to the legislature. I think it's quite appropriate that we have these really firm protections in our state constitution to ensure that we're always fully funding education. I think the challenge with any of that is just the boom bust cycle of our budget, and I think that's the area that we need to address. There's a lot of practical reasons for making decisions why we need to have a more predictable and consistent budget, but education is really one of the biggest ones, because the amount of money that's available for public education really comes up and down depending on those overall budget performance. And so making sure that we create more predictability and consistency from year to year is going to be really important.
All right, here's a specific question that we got from the audience regarding in relation to education. What should be done to support preschools who have lost revenue when the 4-year-olds leave to go to the universal transition kindergarten? It's a question we got from the audience. Yeah, what should be done to support preschools who have lost income because 4-year-olds left to go to the universal transition kindergarten?
Any order?
I think he went, so he goes first. I'm sorry, candidate parent.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with this issue. I think that if it's a matter of giving them opportunities to recruit new replacement 4-year-olds, then we should help them do that. But I'll maybe give you a broader answer. There's actually a lot of childcare that's subsidized by a variety of state programs, sort of for similar age cohorts. Those are really important. Those are important for families, both for the care of their children, but it's also a part of their economic success. It's really hard to manage a job if you for a lot of folks if you have to take care of children at the same time, and so we need to make those kinds of investments. I'm not super familiar with this particular issue, but the core idea of making sure that people are able to be able to participate in our economy and also have their children being taken care of is really crucial.
So this was part of the reason why people were concerned about transitional kindergarten coming into play. When it comes to 4-year-olds being able to move over, yes, the enrollments actually continue to drop down. However, we still have our first 5 programs that are currently in place. We do have grant programs that are currently in place as well. And while I was in Secretary of State's office, I worked to ensure that we have what was called a sliding scale, because we have state-funded preschools, but then we have other preschools that are not state-funded. And so a lot of families are unable to afford, and that's also impacting the enrollment of our other preschool programs. And so having the sliding scale was given those that are middle-class family and low income as well, but particularly military families also to qualify for their students to be able to attend that particular school. And so that opened up the door for a lot more families. And so once again, there are preschool programs, just first 5. There are some grants that are available, but yes, the enrollment does continue to decline because 4-year-olds are moving over, but it also declines because people cannot afford to pay for preschool.
Thank you, candidates. All right, shifting gears again. Would you support reform of Proposition 13, which was passed in the 70s, as a way to address economic inequality? Reforming Proposition 13.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and I supported Prop 15 a number of years ago, which would have created a split roll. Basically, the Prop 13 caps the amount of growth of property taxes for property owners. I think we should preserve it for residential property. People who are homeowners need that predictability about what their tax obligations are, so that they're not displaced out of their homes. You don't want a situation where grandmas are having to leave their homes because they can no longer afford the tax increases. That's not a good thing. But it's also true that some of the biggest beneficiaries of Prop 13 are really gigantic corporations. We're talking like Disneyland, we're talking like AT&T, some of the major real estate owners, and they've never seen their property tax get raised since this was passed in the 70s. And so I'm very comfortable with revisiting it for those folks. And I think we can do that in a way that separately from what happens with residential property owners.
All right, thank you. In regards to I have an economic type question. Many businesses are struggling with rent increases, higher costs, and keeping staff. What are your ideas to support small businesses at this, what the state can do in regards to this issue?
Yeah, so on the City Council in La Mesa, we formed a small business accelerator program where we found new entrepreneurs who wanted to open up small businesses in our community. We gave them training, resources, access to some additional funding. And I think those are kinds of programs that the state should be investing in so that local governments, local economic development organizations are able to do similar programs to get folks involved. But I also think that the housing is a big part of this too. It is. I run a nonprofit. I have to make payroll all the time. I have to do hiring and all this other stuff. It is really hard to pay people enough to be able to live in our community, and that's really related to housing. And so we don't necessarily have to just give direct dollars to businesses. We can also make it easier for them to be able, and for their employees to be able to live and work in our community.
So, having lived here all of my life, and going thinking back to how Imperial Avenue used to be, and how Huffman's and other places used to be around here, we used to have a lot of thriving businesses that were here. And so, to me, it's important that we have some type of state bank put in place to help give some type of funding to the businesses that are here, but also make sure we do have some grant opportunities and that we have training available to help support those. We know that the rents are too high. That's why a lot of our businesses have left. This used to be thriving. I mean, when we had Felix that was here, Felix were here inside the Jacobs Center area, and they left because the cost of the building continued to go up, and they were no longer able to afford that. So they had to move up to Menifee and Oceanside or whichever. But we need to make sure that we have some type of funding in place for our small businesses, encourage our small businesses, support the programs that are currently here throughout our communities and across the state, so that way folks know that they have money coming in for a starter, and that they have some type of funding there as well to help them continue on during the time of need. So some type of subsidies also there to help them out.
All right, thank you, candidates. The 74th district is very diverse. 79th. 79th district is very diverse, thank you. What is your cultural competence to support the diverse community needs?
Well, number one, I'm a woman, and I'm a Black woman. I live right here, and once again, in this district. My cultural competencies go back to one, being who I am, two, being born and raised right here in this district. Also, me having a background in Africana studies, and me teaching the courses that are there, but also teaching the cultural proficiency courses in the College of Education at San Diego State University. Me knowing and understanding the struggles of having to pay rent, having to purchase a home, having to ensure that we have quality education for our kids, making sure that we have healthcare providers that are in the area, making sure that we have quality food here, because too often the food that comes here is not the fresh food, making sure that we have great shopping malls and pharmacies for us to go to in the area. I know it all too well, because once again, I'm a product of this community, and I have a vested interest in this community. So that is my cultural competency, because I am the 79th district.
Yeah, thanks for this question. Yeah, this is a very diverse district. It's very internally diverse. It's diverse on a lot of different metrics, not just on ethnicity, but also geography, right? I mean, goes all the way out to El Cajon. Probably folks in El Cajon don't realize they're in the same district as folks in Southcrest, but they are, right? And so representing this district really is going to require understanding of the breadth and diversity of the whole district. So in my day job, I run a nonprofit called Circulate San Diego. We do a lot of community engagement work for cities and school districts around the region. That's something that's a part of my professional background. And then my role as a candidate and council member involves a lot of, I do a lot of go door to door, I do a lot of talking to people, I do a lot of listening. I try to make myself very available. Everyone in the district's been mailed my phone number in the last few weeks. And that's something that I try to do. I think it's also, of course, going to be very important for when I do hiring in this district for both the capital and district office, that it's representative of the diversity of our district.
All right. So how do you think the state is doing in addressing issues of race and equity in California?
Yeah, I mean, I think the state's making some progress. I mean, I think the efforts by a lot of folks in our community to lead a reparations task force and to get some bills across the finish line to the governor, I think is a good example of that. But there's definitely stuff that we need to do better at, right? So we have a lot of we had a lot of floods, right, in this region very recently. A lot of the state's funding for stormwater infrastructure is not going to the places of the greatest need. It's not going to serve the lower income communities and communities of color to the extent that it ought to. We need to be revisiting some of those policies and priorities for these grant awards so that the state can live up to its stated ideals about being an inclusive and progressive place.
How do you think the state is doing in addressing issues of race and equity in California?
So the state is doing okay. Do we have a long way to go? Yes, we still have a lot of work to do. However, they have been a champion when you look at the work of the Black Caucus, the Latino Caucus, the API Caucus, and so what we call the Tri-Caucus. And so having the reparations task force come out, that was a big step. And now having 14 bills being introduced and being able to go back to look at those and implement those are key. Having the Boys and Men of Color Committee, the Girls and Women of Color Committee, being able to have legislation to address the book bans pertaining to LGBT communities. Also being able to have not only the book ban issues, but the overall protections for those that are seeking different types of services for transgender care. They are doing a pretty good job of making sure that everyone is being heard, everyone's rights are being protected. But do we have a long way to go still? Yes, we do. And I'm going to stand with the Black Caucus to make sure we do everything we need to ensure that not just those that are of African descent, but all of us are able to have what's right and just.
All right, we're going to switch to climate change. So what steps will you take to address at the state level the impact of climate change and promote sustainable practices? Definitely
have to fund the infrastructure. One, making sure everyone knows it and that they're educated on the fact that climate change is real. The environmental justice issues that we have throughout the entire state, and particularly in the 79th, it is real. The money needs to be allocated. It can't just focus on the coastal areas. We have to make sure that we're doing various things to ensure that people can breathe. I do have asthma, and the air quality, it is very concerning. And also dealing with the fact of even here, the trolley that's coming through. There are a number of issues that we still have to address. But making sure, once again, at the state level, that the funding is there, is coming down, and we're holding our local municipalities accountable in regards to the money that's being spent and where it's being spent, and making sure that this district is a top priority. This is too often left behind.
Yeah, so in California, the biggest share of our greenhouse gas emissions are from transportation. And so in order to get a handle on climate change in our communities, we have to be tackling that. And that means we have to be investing in public transit. We need to make sure that people can live closer to where they work or closer to where they go to school and closer to public transit. Those are big, important things that we have to do. It's also really important we have these big, valuable green energy commitments that the state has made. I serve on the San Diego Community Power Board on behalf of La Mesa, so I've been doing some work on this in the last few years. We got to make it easier to get green energy projects permitted. Right now, it can take a decade to build a solar farm or a geothermal plant or something like that. We need to make that easier. We need that green energy. And that's something that we have to be doing if we're going to meet those climate goals.
All right, along those lines, and this has to deal with your energy provider, do you support community choice aggregators? Why or why not?
I am the only person in this race who voted to create the San Diego Community Power, which is a community choice aggregator in our region. And La Mesa is one of the founding jurisdictions of San Diego Community Power. I'm very proud of that effort. I've served on their board for the last 2 years. This is an important opportunity to create a check on San Diego Gas and Electric to give consumers a choice about where they're getting their energy, and we absolutely have to be fighting for that and continue to fight for that in the legislature. A lot of the stuff that happens at the Public Utilities Commission, but the legislature absolutely has a role. And given my background on this, I think I'm going to be in a strong position to be an advocate for community choice aggregation in our region.
So yes, I too will be supporting community choice. I think that is extremely important as we have a number of different entities, partners who we can continue to work with that are local, such as Grid Alternatives and a host of others in regards to getting the type of services for which we need. And by partnering with them, we are promoting not only generational wealth, but we are letting them know that they do have some type of stake in this, that their voice is being heard, and that they're able to give back to their community in more ways than one, instead of relying on the SDG and these sources. We're letting people know that we have it right here and you can be a part of this, and why not continue to grow that opportunity.
All right, again, focusing now on the environment a little bit more. What more should the state be doing to clean up the pollution near the border?
This came up the other night, didn't it? So as we talk about this, so this is still more of a federal conversation. But as far as the state goes, as I mentioned the other night, it has to do with us working to continue to rebuild the trust from what has been lost, meaning that working with those that are on each side of our borders, but also making sure that our local entities have the financial, the means available to continue to work with them. We have to get them to understand and educate those that are on the other side of the border the importance of why we have to stop this type of pollution. And education is going to be a big factor. The economic issues are another factor into why we have what we currently have. But the most what the state can do is make sure that the money is here for the county, it's here with the cities, and that the cities are doing everything they can to work with those that are on the other side of the border to get this done. But it's really going to be a more federal thing, and they have to work with the congressional team to advocate as well to see what else the federal government can do to rectify what's happening. So it's just really working with them and building the partnerships to get it done.
Yeah, this is a really challenging problem because the pollution is coming from south of the border, and there's no law that the state legislature can pass that will force the nation of Mexico to update that infrastructure. There's actually no law that the federal government in the United States can pass that can force them to do that either. And so it's really difficult. And so I think that that's why it hasn't been fixed yet. So I think what the state can and should do is we should be strongly putting pressure on the federal government to do whatever they can to partner with Mexico and to fix this. And that means we need to be working closely with our federal representatives, our House members and our senators, and putting as much pressure as we can on the new administration to take this seriously. And so I think that's the best thing that the state government can do on this, and something that I'm going to continue to be pressing for in elected office.
Okay, shifting gears again, what is the state's role in protecting the LGBTQ plus community, in particular the transgender community?
Yeah, the state has a lot of important roles for this. I mean, everyone should vote for the ballot measure to make permanent and formalize LGBT marriage equality. That's something the state can do. The state of California actually made discrimination in employment against LGBT persons illegal far before the federal government did. I think we've been a leader on this. And we should be proud of it. So we need to continue to work on and to strengthen those kinds of laws. And I think you're especially seeing this with the trans community and in schools and in bathrooms, these sorts of things. We need to stand up for everyone in our society. Everyone should be able to have be welcomed in our communities, and the state needs to be able and willing to go to local governments or local school districts who are violating those rights and holding them to account, correcting them, and making sure that everyone has an opportunity to live and to learn and to be a part of our community.
So when it comes to their role, they're doing some things now that has to do with gender transgender care. So there's some legislation that's there, and they're dealing with some licensing for those who would like to continue to do that work, and making sure that they don't have any types of various red tape that's there. So those who are seeking out gender affirming care, that they will have access to that. They've also have continued to do work, even when I was a staffer in Weber's office, dealing with the actual curriculum, making sure that our curriculum, our sex education curriculum was there to make sure students and family members they're being educated and informed. But not only is it the curriculum, Tony Atkins and others done things in regards to the restrooms, making sure that we have gender neutral restrooms. That has been legislated. We have the marriage that's currently listed on our ballots. We have made sure we have comprehensive health care, addressing our book bans and dealing with workforce discrimination, but also fair hiring practices. So they need to continue on to do this particular work to protect our LGBT community and make sure that our trans families are safe.
All right, we got another question regarding small businesses. We talked about keeping small businesses here. So what are your plans to increase small business startups in the district, and how would you support them?
Well, as I previously stated, it has to do with trying to remove some of this red tape that exists for them even getting started, making sure that they have the education that's there, that the funding that's there, having some type of state bank there as well to help give them some type of funding to start the business is going to be great, and still having some funding there to help them continue to maintain it is also something that's going to be absolutely needed.
Yeah, I shared earlier about a program that we have in La Mesa to encourage and to mentor new entrepreneurs who want to start small businesses in our communities. I think those are important things to continue to fund. There's also a whole variety of other programs that have come out of the Governor's Office of Business Development, among other places, to provide resources and information for businesses and small businesses. My organization, Circulate San Diego, used some. We talked to some business mentors about some issues that we were trying to navigate. And those things are really useful, valuable resources for folks who are doing something small, who don't have a big corporate headquarters that they can rely on. Those are important things to continue to fund so that people are able to, who do want to be entrepreneurial, strike out on their own, do something cool in their community, that they're able to get some resources to do that.
All right, here's a specific question. So if you are elected, what are the bills you will champion and author your first session in the Assembly?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit more about the townhome bill that I want to work on. So right now, the average house price of a house in the region is over $1 million. A new house is even more. There's a variety of reasons for that, but one of them is because they're all relatively large. It used to be that homes were on average size for like 800 square feet, 1,000 square feet. Now all the new homes are 3,000 square feet, right? So no wonder they're more expensive, right? So we need to be. So I want to have this bill to say that, listen, cities require this in a lot of circumstances. Their zoning, their minimum lot sizes, a variety of these other things, and we need to tell them they can't do that anymore. And we want to make sure that if someone wants to build modest starter homes, townhomes, things that ordinary people can afford, they have to be able to be allowed to do that. And I think that's going to be a really useful bill that's going to be meaningful for a lot of people who are trying to get on that housing ladder.
For me, it's going to deal with tuition caps and also school board transparency. And when I'm talking about school board transparency, I'm talking about those that are charter schools as well, because currently your public schools have an elected body, but your charter schools do not have an elected body. They are appointed, they are selected, and so that process should be something that's going to be transparent. Also looking at veterans health care. Right now, currently, if you are a vet and you pass away and you have your partner, your spouse, you pass, they lose that benefit. I want to make sure that veterans their families can continue on to receive the benefits long after they have passed away. And also going to our senior homes, making sure that our homes are being retrofitted for methane gas. So making sure that we're able to go in there and give them the appropriate appliances, but also HVACs. The climate change is real once again, and we have a lot of homes that do not have air conditioners there, and so making sure that we can go in and address those homes for our seniors.
All right, interesting. This is a sort of health-related question. What should the state be doing new to prepare for the next pandemic?
one, do this. Start having conversations and find out what the community needs are. Go back and look at what transpired in January 22nd, and evaluate why that happened and how that happened. Start talking to our local municipalities and making sure, and really starting to do some type of study, some research to find out, once again, following the dollars, the transparency, the accountability measures. The state should be coming down right now in the city of San Diego in regards to the infrastructure. Making sure that the infrastructure is going to be in place. And just really going through, talking to us all and find out what our needs and wants are, but also going back to the municipalities that they're funding and finding out, hey, these are the top priorities. Are you funding these priorities? Have these channels been cleaned out? If not, when will they be done? Hold folks accountable so we do not end up having the same disaster that we just did this year. So my family is still recovering from it.
Yeah, there was a federal office of pandemic preparedness in the White House that was formed under President Obama, and then it was gotten rid of by President Trump. And they're doing stuff now under President Biden. I don't want to live in. I don't want to be subject to the whims of whoever gets elected to the White House on these sort of things, right? And so I think we need to be. We can't rely on our federal partners, unfortunately, for this sort of thing. So we need to create parallel structures in California, parallel plans. We can't rely on the federal government like we thought we could. So I think those are some things that we can and should do. I think parallel to that, we need to be stockpiling materials and masks and those sorts of things. The last two big pandemics that we had in the last 100 and so years have been respiratory, right? The flus, right? Spanish flu and the COVID. So those are things that we should anticipate being likely to happen in the future, and things for which we should prepare.
All right, we got a couple more questions. This again is one from the audience. Who are your largest 4 donors? And do you have an independent expenditure groups working on your behalf, and how much are they spending?
Yeah, I don't know exactly who would be the largest 4. There's like a cap for how much people are able to donate, and so a number of folks have made maximum contributions, more than 4, to my committee. For folks who are interested in this sort of thing, the Secretary of State's website keeps a list of all of the donations that candidates have received for any office, for state office in California. It's actually a really great resource. It also shows and tracks the independent expenditures that are coming out for races, including this one. There are some that have been spending money on my behalf independently. There's also been some that have been spending money independently, saying mean things and untrue things about me, right? And so, but if people are interested in seeing the scale and the source of those dollars, it's all available on a great public website.
Even though it is public, CTA, CNA, which is California Teachers Association, California Nurses Association. We're looking at AXA, which is another education, the organization. Also, another big funder was UDW, so the United Domestic Workers as well. So you said at least 4. So those are some of the top ones. Are there some independent expenditures? We don't typically know that unless it's public. We need to publish to the website. That's how we find out. But we also find out when the stuff hits our mailbox. So yes, there are some independent expenditures that are out there, but you will find out who they are. If you look at the bottom, you'll see who's actually funding those. So that's on the public record, but we don't get that information. We only find out once it hits the mailbox.
All right, and final question, and I thank you for your time here. What about you makes you best suited to represent the 79th District?
Okay, that kind of goes into my closing too.
Yeah.
This way
you're going to get 3 minutes.
Technically. What about me makes me the best candidate is I am you, you are me. being born and raised in the 79th district, I'm not just talking about growing up right here, but having worked throughout the district. All of my working career was throughout the district and so forth. But being born and raised here, working here, and working for Secretary of State wherever for 21 years, and having served this office already for 9.5 years, makes me qualify for this position because I have already done this work. I have established those relationships previously. I have been able to maintain those relationships. But I do know and understand the ins and outs of this particular district. And so I'll continue to address more things as we segue into the closing. But just knowing that me being from here and having already done the work here, those are the main things that makes me qualified because I have, once again, done the work for 9.5 years already.
Yeah, I think there's really two things. And it's experience and it's area of focus. So I've served in elected office in this district for almost 8 years now. Served in the State Department, in the Jerry Brown administration, the State Department of Housing and Community Development. Served also as the director of policy at the San Diego Housing Commission right here in San Diego. I've got a breadth of experience on a variety of issues. When we're talking about, hey, Colin, would you support this or that? I'm very pleased to be able to have answers that say, yeah, not only do I support it, but you can actually look at my record having worked on these issues. And also it's area of focus, right? The things that are the biggest challenges that we're hearing from voters, the things that are top of their mind are cost of living, especially housing, and homelessness. And those are the things that I've been talking about on this campaign. Those are the areas of expertise that I have, and those are the things that I'm going to work on. And I think that's going to make the biggest difference in the lives of our constituents here in the 79th.
All right, thank you. Before our candidates give their closing remarks, I want to thank you for being such an attentive audience and for asking such good questions. I appreciate it. I want to let you know the League of Women Voters does have a website at vote411.org that provides valuable information on candidates and ballot measures at the local, state, and federal level. I know California will have a number of propositions on the November ballot, so please use this as a valuable tool. We do have bookmarks and business cards in the back, but again, I encourage you to go to vote411.org. All right, so now we have, sorry about that. Now we have our closing statements. You'll have 2 minutes, and we'll reverse the order. So candidate Collins, I gotta get it right, the right order. I'm sorry, Sharp Collins. I'm so sorry.
So once again, my name is Dr. LaShae Sharp Collins, candidate for State Assembly to represent the 79th District. Me running for the seat, as I mentioned before, has everything to do with you. I did not decide to run for the seat because I had some other type of agenda and platform I wanted to move forward. I'm running for the seat because it's important that this community has its voice heard. When you are listening to your candidates and talking to others, it's important. It is important for you to see yourself within the work they are currently doing, but also see yourself within them. It is important that you do what you can to vote your values. Being born and raised here, being a woman of color, a mother, a single mother, raising 2 children in here, that lets you know that I have a vested interest. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist for the San Diego County Office of Ed. And with that work, it's my job to make sure that I can bridge the gap between our communities and, of course, our local government agencies. And being able to do that work requires you to be able to build and maintain trusting and working relationships. One thing that I always tell people that I work with to ask is, what is it about you wish I knew? And that's the approach that you have to take to your community and say, hey, what is it about you that you wish I knew? With me, you won't have to worry about me forgetting about you to bring you to the table. You will always have a seat at the table. This relationship will go beyond 12 years. This relationship goes beyond that because I'm not just doing this for you to get me elected. I'm here to make sure that we have strong working relationships. You need someone in this office who is not going to be afraid to stand up and fight for what's just and for what's right. You need someone in this office who's going to make sure that your voice is being heard, your voice is being valued, and your voice is being respected, and that you're not being marginalized. I am endorsed by the California Democratic Party. California Nurses Association, Sierra Club, also Planned Parenthood, CTA, Senator Tony Atkins, Secretary of State Dr. Shirley Weber, Assemblymember Dr. Keegan Weber, and a host of others. I am you, you are me, our voices together equal power. I truly hope I can earn your support.
Yeah, thanks again, everyone, for being here, and thanks to the event organizers for putting this on. I really do appreciate the opportunity. I've spent almost 8 years in elected office here in this district. I have a strong background in public policy. Feel like I have the experience, the testedness, the ideas about what we need in order to make improvements in public policy for our communities. I'm going door to door all the time, doing all kinds of phone calls, hearing from a lot of voters, and the things that they're talking about are very real in their lives. It's the affordability, it's homelessness, and we need real solutions to be able to address this. Now, my opponent and I, we've got a lot of things in common. We're both Democrats. We're both pro-choice. We both love the district. We both believe in funding more affordable housing, but we do have some differences. And one of the things she said earlier is that we can't build our way out of this, right? And I disagree. I think we absolutely must be building. We absolutely have to have more homes if we're going to address our supply constraints and our affordability challenges. And you know who else agrees with that? It's a woman named Kamala Harris, who you might have heard of, who's running for president of the United States. And she has been talking about how we need to build 3.5 million more homes in the United States. And we have to cut through red tape and obstruction that's often happening in our state and local governments. I think she's right. I agree with the vice president about this. And we need to take seriously the challenges that we have for affordability in our community. That's something that I've been extremely consistent on, and that's what I'm going to be working on your behalf if you all choose to elect me to the Assembly. So thank you very much again for having me. I'm really grateful for it.
Great. Thank you to the candidates. So on behalf of the Zeta Sigma Lambda chapter of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and the League of Women Voters of San Diego, I want to thank the candidates, Dr. LaShae Sharp Collins and Colin Parent, for running for office and attending our forum today. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.